We often think history is about, the big picture grand events. But sometimes the really powerful stories are these smaller personal tragedies, tales of betrayal, violence.
Absolutely. And today we're doing one of our deep dives into exactly that kind of story, using historical notes to uncover what happened.
We're looking at the tragic death of Florence Galloway. She was just 18. This was back in 1878.
Yes, and we've got a written account, contemporary notes really, detailing the events that led up to her death. It's quite detailed.
Right. So Florence actually died on New Year's Day, 1878. But it was from injuries she got almost a month before, on December 5th.
Yes, the timeline, yeah.
So our mission here isn't just to tell a sad story. It's to use this account to really understand the world Florence lived in. What does it tell us about life back then?
Let's start with Florence herself. Born 1859, daughter of William Henry and Elizabeth Galloway, and the account mentions she started work as a housemaid when she was only 11.
11, wow.
Yeah, it immediately tells you something about the economic reality for working class families. Kids had to work.
No childhood, really.
Pretty much. So fast forward a bit. About 15 months before she died, Florence gets involved with a man named George Piggott.
Okay, who was he?
He was a coachman, also drove trams, and he was older, 12 years older than her.
Significant age gap for the time.
Definitely. And things moved fast. He persuaded her to move with him to Birmingham.
Okay, starting a new life together.
Uh,
Or so she thought.
Exactly, because it was in Birmingham that Florence found out the truth. Piggott was already married.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Had a wife and 3 children back in Ardwick, Manchester. A complete deception.
I can only imagine how devastating that must have been. What did she do?
Well, she left him, returned to her mother, Elizabeth, who was living in Lower Broughton. This was November 8th. They found lodging with a Mrs. Garside on Lawn Street.
So she went back to family. That was her main option, right?
It really was, especially finding herself in that position, betrayed like that. There wasn't much else a young woman could do.
Did Piggott just let her go?
Not likely. He actually followed her back to Manchester, tried to get into Mrs. Garside's place to see her.
Really? He just showed up.
Yep. But Mrs. Garside turned him away, didn't let him in.
Good for her. But it shows his persistence, maybe possessiveness?
I think so, yes. And that persistence really escalates. The account details this specific encounter. Saturday, November 24th.
What happened then?
Florence and her mother were visiting Mrs. Wilson, who had a Sharp. Piggott found them there.
He tracked them down.
Seems like it. He apparently grabbed Florence, pleaded with her, begged her to come back.
And did she?
No, she refused him. Right there in the shop.
That must have taken courage.
Absolutely, standing up to him like that. And her refusal. Well, it seems like that was a key moment leading to what happened next.
Okay, so what did happen next?
Something really sinister. On December 5th, Florence and her mother receive a letter.
A letter from Piggott.
No, that's the thing. It looked like it was from Mrs. Wilson, the shop owner, inviting them over that evening around 7 p.m.
Wait, so it wasn't actually from Mrs. Wilson?
All indications are that it was a fake. A trap, basically. Set by Piggott to get them out in the open.
That's deeply disturbing. Calculated.
Very. So they go out thinking they're visiting Mrs. Wilson. It's about 6:30 p.m. They're walking along Union Street.
He's waiting for them.
He intercepts them, blocks their path.
What do they do?
Well, Elizabeth, Florence's mother, she actually confronted him, called him a bad man, told him to leave them alone. Pretty brave, I'd say.
Definitely. Standing up for her daughter.
But Piggott wasn't interested in talking to Elizabeth. He insisted on speaking with Florence.
And Florence.
She stood her ground again, told him, I have nothing to say to you. Go back to your wife and children.
Good for her. Setting a clear boundary.
Very clear boundary. But Piggott, his reaction was just brutal. He made some false claim about wanting to help her, financially or something.
Another manipulation.
Exactly. And when she still refused him, he pulled out a pistol.
No.
Yes, and fired it right near her head.
Oh, my God. Did it hit her?
She collapsed immediately, gravely injured. The sound must have been terrifying.
I can't even imagine what happened right after. Chaos.
Total chaos. The account mentions people shouting murder. Neighbors came running out.
Did they catch Piggott then?
No, he fled, vanished into the night. Meanwhile, people helped Florence, carried her back to Mrs. Garside's on Lawn Street.
Did they get a doctor?
Yes, a doctor examined her, found a 2-inch wound behind her ear, said she was suffering from severe shock, which is hardly surprising.
And Piggott, where did he go?
He managed to escape Manchester. He was actually found a few days later hiding out in Kearsley, working as a collier, a miner.
So he tried to just disappear into a new life.
Seems like it. But they caught him, and his reaction when they told him Florence was still alive, it's chilling.
What did you say?
He apparently said, "I wish she was," meaning he wished she was dead.
That's incredibly callous. No remorse at all.
None apparent. He even tried to blame Florence's mother, claiming she'd kept his letters from Florence, just shifting blame.
Unbelievable. So Florence was alive when he was caught,
But her injuries were too severe. She lingered for several weeks, but sadly, she died on January 1st, 1878.
New Year's Day. Such a tragic end.
It really is. The post-mortem examination was done by a Dr. Pinder. He confirmed fatal brain trauma from the gunshot. Interestingly, they couldn't actually locate the bullet itself.
But the cause of death was clear.
Oh, absolutely. And the examination revealed something else as well.
What was that?
Florence was 4 months pregnant when she died.
Oh, goodness. Pregnant with his child.
Almost certainly. It just adds another layer of tragedy to the whole thing. The loss of her life and this potential future.
Absolutely heartbreaking. What happened legally after her death?
Things moved quickly. The coroner's inquest was held the very next day, January 2nd, at a local pub, the Royal Archer Inn.
An inquest in a pub.
Quite common back then. The deputy coroner, Mr. Frederick Price, led it. The conclusion was straightforward. Florence died as a direct result of the injury inflicted by George Piggott.
So, legally, his responsibility was established right away.
Yes, and the day after the inquest, January 3rd, Florence was buried.
Where? Was there a family plot?
No, sadly. She was buried in an unmarked common grave at Weaste Cemetery. It speaks volumes about their social standing, really, even in death, marked by poverty.
Such a sad, anonymous end. And Piggott.
He appeared at Salford Police Court on January 4th. The charge was now formally murder.
And the trial, when was that?
Very quickly, actually, January 17th at the Manchester Assizes. It was presided over by Justice Denman.
Did Piggott offer any defense?
He did. His lawyer argued 2 main points. First, that he only intended to frighten Florence, not kill her.
Which seems unlikely given he shot her in the head.
Exactly. And second, they brought up a supposed previous head injury, suggesting it affected his judgment.
Ah, the impaired judgment defense. Was that common?
Yeah. It was certainly tried, attempting to lessen responsibility for violent acts.
Did the jury accept it?
No, they didn't buy it. He was found guilty of murder.
And the sentence?
Death by hanging. Mandatory for murder at the time.
Did the judge say anything specific when sentencing?
He did. The account preserves some of his remarks. He condemned Piggott's extreme cruelty. He talked about how Piggott had exploited Florence, used violence against her.
So, a strong condemnation.
Very strong. The judge specifically dismissed the head injury claim as any kind of justification for such a, quote, heinous crime. He emphasized Piggott's audacity in thinking he had some right over Florence after she'd clearly rejected him.
It really does reflect the power dynamics or the lack of autonomy for women, doesn't it?
It certainly highlights the prevailing attitudes, yeah. Even the judge's strong words are framed within that context.
So, Piggott was sentenced to death. What happened then?
He was held in prison, Strangeways Prison in Manchester. The account notes he was quiet, didn't cause trouble.
Waiting for execution.
Exactly. The execution date was set for Monday, February 4th, 8 a.m.
Are there details about the execution itself?
Yes. The account includes quite a few grim details. Early morning prayers with the chaplain, Reverend J. Galbraith. The hangman was present, a man named William Marwood.
The hangman. Was that his full-time job?
Interestingly, no. Marwood was originally a shoemaker from Horncastle. He sort of developed a reputation for his long drop method of hanging, considered more humane at the time.
Wow. A shoemaker turned hangman.
Yeah. The account even mentions his fee structure. There were official witnesses, too, 5 reporters and 5 prison wardens.
So it wasn't exactly private.
No, capital punishment was still quite a public affair, even within prison walls. Documented, reported on.
And after the execution, what happened to Piggott's body?
Following the custom of the time for executed prisoners, he was buried within the prison walls, in an unmarked grave.
So anonymous, like Florence in a way, but within the prison.
Right. That practice continued for a long time. It was only after the Strangeways riot in 1990 that remains of executed prisoners there were exhumed and reinterred together in Blackley Cemetery.
A strange kind of historical footnote.
It is. Now, the account also gives us a bit more background on both Florence and Piggott before all this happened.
Right, filling in some gaps. What more do we learn about Florence?
She was born May 3rd, 1859 in Broughton, Manchester. Second child of William Henry, who was a bookkeeper, and Elizabeth.
So her father had a white-collar job, but they were still likely working class.
Yes, definitely. They later moved to Ardwick, probably for her father's work, lived in typical terraced housing of the era. Her education was brief, as we know, before she went into domestic service.
As a live-in housemaid.
Exactly. For a Mr. Hammett Wilson, a watchmaker and silversmith in Stretford, and it was while working there that she met George Piggott.
Ah, okay, so that's how their paths crossed.
Yeah.
And Piggott, what was his background?
He was born in Congleton, Cheshire in 1847. Congleton was known for its silk mills. Opportunities were pretty limited: manual labor, maybe domestic service.
So, similar working-class roots.
Seems so. He married Olive Leah in the summer of 1868. She was also in domestic service. They moved to Manchester soon after.
And this is the wife he later abandoned.
That's right. They had their first child, Thurza, in 1869. And there's an interesting detail in the 1871 census.
Oh, what's that?
Piggott listed his occupation as policeman.
But he wasn't a policeman. He was a coachman and tram driver.
Correct. It was a complete fabrication. Seems like he had a tendency towards deception even back then. Maybe wanted to appear more, I don't know, authoritative, respectable.
Interesting. Another lie.
Yeah.
And he and Olive had more children.
Yes, 2 more after Thurza. But by 1876, just a few years later, he'd abandoned Olive and their 3 young children.
Just left them. That must have been incredibly difficult for Olive.
Devastating, surely. Socially, economically, a single mother with 3 kids in that era faced enormous hardship.
Does the account say anything more about them? About Olive or the children?
It gives a brief glimpse into the later life of the eldest daughter, Thurza.
Oh, really? What happened to her?
Well, her life seems to have been marked by hardship, too. Her husband, Arthur Cook, died in 1901, leaving her a widow with 7 children to support.
7 children, wow.
Yeah.
Eh.
She did remarry later to a widower named Richard Moss. And his story was also touched by tragedy. He had lost 6 children in infancy previously.
Goodness, just layers of loss and hardship in that family history.
It really underscores the ripple effects, doesn't it? Piggott's actions didn't just destroy Florence's life, they cast a long shadow over his own family, too.
It's such a profoundly sad story, Florence Galloway's. Her life cut short so violently, based on deceit.
And it really does throw a harsh light on the social realities of the late 19th century, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You see the vulnerability of young working-class women like Florence, how few choices they often had.
Mm-hmm. And the potential consequences of male deception, aggression, especially in a society where women had so little power or protection.
And thinking about Piggott's wife, Olive, and their children, like Thurza, it's a stark reminder that the impact of these events spreads far beyond the immediate victim. Generational hardship, almost.
Exactly. Families starved for years.
So when you step back and look at this whole account from 1878, it really makes you think.
It does. What does Florence's fate really tell us about how society viewed women, relationships, justice back then?
And maybe what echoes of those attitudes, those vulnerabilities, those power imbalances might still be around today.
That's the really sobering question, isn't it? How much has changed and what parts of this past still linger? Something to really reflect on.